One more thing here on Locked On Heat. The Miami Heat celebrated their 2006 championship 20-year anniversary tonight. And the question is this team living up to that standard? We'll talk about it next.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Now, the number one sports podcast network, whether you're tuning in on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. Join the Cookie Gang. Become an everydayer. That means subscribing, tuning in every day, Monday through Friday, and signing up for the Everydayer Club with the link in the show notes. I'm Wes Goldberg, host of Locked On NBA Daily and Real GM Radio. I'm here with David Ramil. Both of us are credentialed Heat media members who cover this team every day. We just got done recording our post-game episode after the Heat lost to the Hawks on the night that the Miami Heat were honoring the 20-year anniversary of the 2006 championship team. And everybody, David, was here. Almost everybody. No Shannon Anderson, no other Anderson, and no, what was the other?
James Posey.
And no James Posey. What was the other Anderson name? Why am I blanking?
Derek Anderson.
Derek Anderson. No James Posey. But most everybody else was here, including Dwyane Wade and Shaquille O'Neal, who spoke with us reporters before the game. And then they had a little Q&A session with Eric Reed at halftime, a big celebration. They brought the 2006 championship banner down. They took pictures with it. Dwyane Wade brought the trophy out. They had this tremendous hype video with highlights from that 2006 championship run and the NBA Finals win against the Dallas Mavericks. And, man, I got to tell you, I had goosebumps on Media Row just watching that. Watching them go down, like remembering down 0-2 to the Dallas Mavericks in the 2006 Finals and then winning 4 straight games. You and I did our rewatch of the 2006 Finals, what was that, 3 years ago now, I think. 2023 we did that. And man, it stands out to me just how tremendous that team was and how gritty that team was. And Shaq talked about it before the game tonight, about how it was sort of like a bad news Bears kind of group. They won 52 games. Nobody expected them to win the championship. They go down 0-2, and then they do it. The sacrifice that whole team made, the fact that he handed the baton to Dwyane Wade, and then he had one of the great individual performances that we've ever seen in NBA Finals history. Just so much to remember there. And then you see the Heat just lay an egg against the Atlanta Hawks, and so I guess maybe the right place to start here is Dwyane Wade talking about before the game what that 2006 team means, and he was asked, should that 2006 team and all of the celebration this week, should that be an inspiration to the current team? And Shaq kind of said, no, I don't really try to do that. I don't tell people to be inspired by me, whatever, all this stuff. And then Dwyane Wade stepped in and he was like, no, F that, basically. And he said, absolutely that we should be an inspiration. This organization has a standard. This is the standard. Yeah. And I hear Dwyane Wade say that, and I'm just sitting there. I'm like, yeah, this is the standard. What did you think about his comments?
I thought they were fantastic. I really do. I think, look, you can expect that from Shaquille O'Neal. Like, it's not to say that he was a mercenary, and I'm glad that he's still reconnected with the team at some point. But he's got his roots in Orlando, then Los Angeles, then here. He went to the finals with every team that he was a part of. Those first 3 teams, I should say. And then he went to Cleveland, he went to Boston, he went to Phoenix. Like, he's done the tour already. He's been a part of this organization, and I love that he was a part of that championship run. But he's not going to show that same kind of connection. For Dwyane, as he said, this is his organization. This is his team. It will always be Dwyane Wade's team. And the way that he has, been a part of this group, the way that he's still invested in the success of this team, that's different. And he wants to provide that kind of, inspiration for this group. And they should see it. I think you get a little desensitized to it, and maybe it's time for a change or something like that. But you walk through Championship Alley, and I know that even as reporters, we've already gotten accustomed to it. But I remember the first couple of times I walked past those pictures and seeing all that and seeing the celebration. It's meant to provide inspiration for you. And to celebrate the 2006 championship, it's supposed to recreate that same feeling that you bond together. It's us against the world. You fight for something. You never give up. And you find a way to win at all costs. Now, it's certainly easy to do when you have 4 Hall of Famers on that roster. So I get that aspect of it. But even for guys like Bam, veterans on this team, they should rise to the challenge. They should take some inspiration from what had happened in 2006 and let that trickle down to the game-to-game process for Miami, because right now we're not seeing that. They haven't won 2 games in a row, much less a steady stream of wins, which is what this team is looking for right now. They should be winning at a higher level, and they're just not. And if the 2006 championship can inspire them in any way, I hope it does, because right now we're not seeing this team with much of a spark towards anything or created by anything.
Yeah, I want to read the full quote that you mentioned there from Dwyane Wade. He says, quote, "This is my organization. I hope we put some inspiration into these guys and into whoever is going to continue to be a part of this organization." End quote. Week of the trade deadline, perhaps hinting towards something. I'm joking, but not really. David, it was kind of interesting. I did find it fascinating that the Heat decided, and maybe it was an oversight, I don't know, I haven't asked around, but that the Heat decided to do the 2006 anniversary the week of the trade deadline. And I think last year, too, the trade deadline was the same week as the gala. And I think this is a common thing that happens here.
It is. It happens all the time.
And so, right, it happens every year. And I guess to have the gala and also have the 2006 team show up and be at the gala is a nice way. And so maybe it's just all sort of coincidental here. But you could have organized a different kind of time to have the 2006 team show up. You didn't have to do it the week of the gala / the week of the trade deadline. I just find the backdrop to this crazy trade deadline.
Yeah.
Also having this 2006 championship celebration, I just find that fascinating on so many levels.
It's an interesting contrast, right? Because here you have this team they're constantly nervous. And then we know this. Like, for everybody that's kind of looking at this Hawks loss and saying, oh, this team stinks. And believe me, I want to be right there with everybody else. At the same time, you also have to take into consideration the incredible stress of the trade deadline. Like, imagine that you know that whatever business you're a part of is going to experience budget cuts, and you've got a meeting. You ever watch the movie Office Space? Or is it Office Space? Yeah. You remember where he's gonna meet with the 2 Bobs, and everybody's making these cuts, and everybody's dreading what's gonna happen to their department, who's gonna get fired, etc. This is what that's like. The trade deadline is like that for everybody around the league. You just don't know. Your whole life could be uprooted. And so there's this constant concern. Like, maybe Bam is the only one, but even that, as a human being, he might not get traded, but he's still in that locker room of all these guys that are stressed out and worried. So it's got to impact him as well. So there's got to be a lot of just carryover, emotional impact from the trade deadline looming large over everything that this organization does. So it's going to be difficult. And then at the same time, as you said, the scheduling of the 2006 championship, it's a little unusual to get that many players. Maybe it was just because it was before the All-Star break as well, when you know a lot of players will descend on Los Angeles this year and be a part of that. Former players love to be where the All-Star festivities are taking place. Maybe it's easier to connect all those travel pieces together and say, you know what, you're already going to be traveling to Los Angeles. Why not schedule a trip a couple weeks beforehand to Miami as well? Plus, who knows? Maybe a lot of those guys living up north too. Well, who wouldn't want to come down to Miami in February? Right. If you're living up north,
especially right now. Yeah. I was joking that maybe Dwyane Wade hinted at potential changes at the trade deadline. Pat Riley said something really interesting at halftime that I want to talk about here in a second. But first, today's One More Thing is brought to you by FanDuel. It's last call for football on FanDuel. One final Sunday, one last kickoff, the final chance to get in on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close. This is Super Bowl 60, and FanDuel is making sure that you're right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. Whether you're backing the favorite, riding with the underdog, or building one last same-game parlay, this is the game everybody's been waiting for. This is where predictions turn into plays, stats turn into storylines, and every snap feels bigger. It's the perfect way to cap off the season and make the Super Bowl even more exciting from kickoff to the final whistle. If you're a new customer, you could bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win. Make it count, because after the Super Bowl, the season's over. Last call for football on FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So there was a Q&A session at halftime of this game, David, and Eric Reed was talking to Pat Riley. And Pat Riley, some of the first words out of his mouth, talking about the moves that roster made to surround Dwyane Wade and Shaquille O'Neal with the support that they needed a year after making that the big blockbuster Shaq trade. He said, nothing against the young players, but I knew I needed players with a track record, with a history of winning. Interesting thing to say this week with the trade deadline looming, David, when we're talking about chasing a potential NBA Finals MVP in Giannis and it costing you some young players. Should we read into that?
I don't think there's ever been any doubt about that, though. Like, honestly, I know that it's been pretty easy for a lot of fans to point to quote unquote sleepy Pat and say that's Pat, just doesn't know how to make those moves. I'm sorry, even at 80 or however old Riley might be, I don't think he's that emotionally attached to any one player at this stage where he's not going to include you for a trade if that means getting the superstar. He's trying to make the best deal possible. He's trying to maybe lowball another organization and still giving up a superstar. So if he's not making the deal, it's not because he's emotionally attached. It's just because he's trying to get the best deal for the organization, for Miami, that is. So I think he's always been committed to getting a player that's proven, to getting a player that has shown the ability to win at a high level. Does that mean he's going to throw the entire kitchen along with the sink and everything else that the Heat have to offer? No, I don't think so. I think he's seen how that plays out in today's NBA with the new CBA and how it limits certain teams and things of that sort. Yep. You have to have some depth. Like, yes, you have to have the superstars, and I get that. But you also have to have some depth, or else you're still going to be spinning your wheels. You're just going to be another one of those teams that's not going to be able to get it done. Look at last year's Indiana team. Tyrese Halliburton was playing ridiculously well, but they made their finals run based on their depth. And I think that's really an important factor in building a team in today's game, is having to have enough players surround a star-level player. And so that's why if he hasn't included everything in a proposed trade package for Giannis, it's because he's making the best deal possible, not because he's unwilling to trade any of these players.
And let's remember, Giannis has agency here. He has leverage. He wants to go to a team that can win. He doesn't want to go to Milwaukee Bucks 2.0, right? He's not coming to Miami for the warm weather. If he comes to Miami, he's doing it to win a championship, or at least compete for championships in a way that he can't right now with the Milwaukee Bucks, because they don't have that depth. They don't have the surrounding supporting cast like that you're talking about here. So, Giannis, because he's up for an extension here, does have a little bit of leverage in this.
Are you buying more of the talk about Giannis really loving Miami or preferring Miami as the option? Because it feels like we've heard more of that buzz over the last couple of days, that if he's interested in owning one team, it doesn't necessarily mean anything. I know he has some leverage in this. He does have some say in what happens, but it's not ultimately the deciding factor for the Bucks front office. But are you buying into the talk that Giannis does prefer Miami as a destination?
I think he would enjoy playing in Miami. I don't know that he has it ranked number one. Right? If we really want to believe the reporting, he's got New York ranked number one, but they just can't make a deal happen.
Right.
So I don't think he would be upset for playing. I think there's a lot of motivations for Giannis to be playing in Miami as a market, but I think fundamentally it's a basketball concern for Giannis first and foremost, and all that other stuff is secondary. I mean, he wants to play in Minnesota because he thinks he could pair with Anthony Edwards and compete with Anthony Edwards for years, right? Nobody's picking Minneapolis as a market, right, to grow your business off the court and all these things. Like, nobody in their right mind would do that. But he looks at Ant as a young superstar player and he says, him and the two of us can compete for years to come. I think he looks at Miami as a stable organization, first and foremost, that has a track record of maximizing their star players' ability to compete for championships year in and year out. And he says, yeah, that to me is more interesting. And if it's also in the warm weather and in a market that has not only maximized their superstars' potential, but also helped their earning potential off the court too, even better, right? Like icing on the cake. In terms of the Pat Riley comment, when he says nothing against young players, but I knew I needed to get players with a track record. I take it literally to your point, David, because it's not new, right? Like this is Pat Riley's track record that he is willing to move those pieces if it means that he can go get the superstar that he believes is worth it, right? He obviously didn't think that Kevin Durant was worth it or even Damian Lillard. Like he wasn't willing to go all in for those players. I think he's certainly a lot more willing to go more in for Giannis at this stage. We talked a lot about what that 2016 being here and what its impact could be, or maybe what it wasn't on this current team against that Atlanta Hawks, against the Hawks in that game. Like, why wasn't the team more inspired by that 2016 team? We've talked about Dwyane Wade, talking about how there was a standard set. The players aside, right? I wonder if Pat Riley is surrounded by all of this happening right now and says, and I wonder if he's inspired by this to be like, you know what? I really do want to taste that championship again. Like, let's go for it. Let's really go all in for it at this stage. I wonder that in terms of the human element part of it.
Yeah, I think it's certainly a factor for him too. Like, we've heard this for a long time. Like, he wants to secure one last championship for this team before he decides to move on. At least that's the way it's always been framed. Like, he wants to just be able to set up this team for some long-lasting success that is culminating in a championship. And I think the Giannis deal is certainly that. But it was interesting to hear Shaq, Dwyane, Antoine Walker, like different players, just pointing at the architect of it all. The fact that Riley was the one who pulled the trigger on those deals. And it's a great point that kind of gets overlooked because I think a lot of people have seen the assembly of the big three and they recognize Riley had a hand in doing that, but Dwyane Wade was certainly a big factor in that. But in 2005, when the team had made it to the Eastern Conference Finals and lost to the Detroit Pistons, Riley was like, okay, this team's good. Not good enough. Thanks for your time, Eddie Jones. Thanks for being here, etc. We're going to go get Jason Williams. We're going to go get James Posey. We're going to go get Antoine
Shields
Walker.
and swords.
He took a risk. Yeah, he's going to go take a risk. He was a big risk at that point in time to make those kinds of moves. I remember thinking that was a surprise move. It's like, yeah, okay, you're set with your star duo. You've got your two top players in Shaq and Dwyane. But to acquire all these other players to make that move was kind of risky. And guess what? It paid off. It paid off, incredibly well. So, it cost Stan Van Gundy too a chance to coach that team. But Pat Riley was able to step down and lead that group and inspire them and push them the way that they needed to be pushed at that point in time. So you wonder whether or not he's seeing that and kind of feeling that old fire. Not that I ever really think it's been quenched or diminished in any way, but I don't know.
A little extra inspiration, a little extra nudge, right? I think everybody needs a little reminding of, I've said this a lot, right? You know a championship team when you're around it. I think you and I have the benefit of actually being able to be in a locker rooms and be around these teams. When you're around a championship team, you feel it, right? Like you know when you're around a team that can potentially win a title, there's a feeling about it. There's an air around that team. This team obviously doesn't have it. Nobody expected this team to have it. I think 2022 had it. I don't even think 2023 really had it until they were in it. But you're around Dwyane Wade and Shaquille O'Neal and Antoine Walker and Jason Williams and Gary, but you're just around all those guys tonight. And obviously it's easy to say that. Maybe it's confirmation bias. I don't know what it is, but you're just around those guys right now and you're like, yeah, that's a championship team. They got it. And
Jimmy had it.
I think
he did. He did. Like
Jimmy, like I said, stuff. I think the team and Jimmy had it, and in general, the team in 2022 had it. I thought that team. I remember walking in Game 1 and telling multiple people, I'm like, I think this team's got a real shot. And I still think, even though that's one of the teams that didn't make the finals, I still think that was the best Heat team during the Jimmy Butler era. And so, there were definitely teams that had it. Jimmy did have that. So, I think they need to go get that. And I just want, like, once you're around it, I think it just gives you a little bit of a taste and a reminder of, that's what that feels like. We got to go get that. Thanks for tuning into Locked On Heat. Make sure that you tune in, subscribe. We're going to have a lot more between now and the trade deadline and after the trade deadline. And, of course, after that, make sure you subscribe, follow Locked On Heat so you get all of the latest episodes.